Despite the limited driving range, soulless experience, and the boring, dull interior designs,
you don't have any shifter or something that you can touch.
Electric cars have been all the rage with try-hard millennials and big corporations that are pushing this new technology into our faces. But realistically, how likely are electric cars to actually influence the future in a positive way? But before I rip into EVs and their consumers fully, I'd like to say that I'm a long-term holder of a certain Chinese EV company rivaling Tesla, and the company seemed quite promising until a man crashed after his EV, which had its self-driving system activated, rear-ended another vehicle on a highway. I've never actually been a blind hater of electric cars, as I actually used to be a firm believer until I started looking deeper into it. Well, first, let's look at the whole idea of electric and gasoline cars in reverse. If all cars were originally electric, and we were constantly mining lithium and copper for the batteries, and had a bunch of liberal arts students crying about how we were creating fissures in the ground, and using way too much fresh water to actually obtain lithium, outrage would spark. Let alone the fact that even if everyone did have electric cars, there wouldn't even be enough electricity from fossil fuels or nuclear power stations to power them. And that's not even mentioning renewable energy. And then imagine someone in the early 2010s popularizes the fact that you can actually just get a different natural resource from the ground, heat it up a little bit until it's able to be fueled into something called an internal combustion engine in under 2 minutes. In today's climate, where people have to potentially wait up to 50 hours, and even if I wasn't being biased, the lowest time to wait on a level 2 charging station is between 1 and 2 hours, most people in this fake electric car society I've invented would be more than happy to run fossil fuels. And that's not even because of the charging times or unsustainable lithium mining. Since the average range on an electric car is around 300 miles, then that is a lot less than the average 500 that a diesel engine gets on a full 50-litre tank. Not to mention that if you run out of fuel in a car with an internal combustion engine...
Don't tell me you've run out.
Oh, yes! Yes!
then there are thousands of petrol stations that you can go to and top up your car in a matter of minutes. With battery-powered cars, however, you might find yourself stranded in the middle of nowhere or unable to travel such distances at all. For example, if you were to take a 400-mile round trip to take your family camping, you would be left unable to get a fresh battery if you were to be using NIO's battery-as-a-service formula, or nowhere to charge up if the petrol station closest to you doesn't have an electric charging point. Another thing, if you do in fact run out of petrol in the middle of nowhere, then at least you can walk a mile or two, get some fuel, put it into a container, and walk back to your car with a full drum of petrol, one thing that is impossible with electric cars. And while we are on the topic of getting your car on the road, one of the main arguments for the use of EVs is the belief that electric cars are more morally virtuous since we aren't using the evil carbon-emitting fossil fuels. Well, it turns out that since the increased demand for cobalt, EV fans are not winning, since around 70% of the world's cobalt is produced in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Often unregulated, miners are working under terrible conditions, and since child labour is common, I'm sure you feel like a boss launch starting your Tesla, wearing your Nike Air Jordans and sipping your pumpkin spice iced frappe latte from Starbucks. Super secret Starbucks menu item there though guys, don't leak it, don't leak it.
This is the Starbucks version of a Manhattan. I believe it's 0.5% alcohol.
Of course, I can't just talk a load of rubbish about the morality of cobalt mining without recognising the other things we use it for. But if you see this graph, it seems to me that the EV industry has taken a large market share, where mining for electric car batteries has boosted this industry of exploitation by 85%. And if I'm still gonna go all Final Fantasy VII Avalanche on you guys, I would like to let you know that even if you're driving an electric car, the electricity that you're using still comes largely from non-renewable sources. For example, in the US alone, 60% of all power generated is from natural gas, coal and nuclear.
Green, what's your problem, Green?
If everyone had electric cars right now, it would make the day that Tokyo 3 stood still look like a joke. If you truly did care about the environment, you would be better off buying a cheap diesel car more than 5 years old and running it until it just blows up. And I'm not just talking about the ways that electric cars spontaneously combust either. The reason I think this way is because the frequency that people get a new car if they lease their vehicle is around 3 years, when in this day and age, a well-maintained car can run for 5 to 15 years without needing an upgrade. I think people just want to get an upgrade when it seems fit to them, the same way that Becky, who works at Starbucks, upgrades her phone every 2 years once the contract's finished. But people getting a new phone just for the fun and status symbol of it is a video for a whole nother time. In my opinion, get a decent older car that you can build a connection with and stick to it until the very end. I understand why people are keen to endorse the idea of electric cars for the fact that they do not produce any emissions while on the road. but the actual logistics and morals of manufacturing electric cars just don't sit well with me. Not just due to the insane impact on the environment to produce these cars,
There are only 15,000 of these plants, more or less.
but also for the fact that the culture of internal combustion engines for car lovers in the West and all around the world is going to be thrown to the wayside. We don't just love cars because they can get us from A to B on a limited driving range, but also for how it feels when you're driving. Certain roars of petrol and diesel engines can be distinguished and admired by motorheads all across the world. I also realised that with the correct infrastructure and the unrealistic ideal of having fully renewable, eco-friendly electricity sources makes the electric car market outshine the modern day car by quite a lot, but getting close to such an ideal seems that of fantasy, simply for the reason that we don't in fact have environmentally friendly ways of sourcing the materials, and even if we did, I think it's too many steps forward right now, because we don't even have the infrastructure to produce enough electricity to go into the batteries anyway. I would be a lot more on the fence about my opinions of electric cars if, let's say, we did have some incredibly cost-effective solar panels all across the globe, along with wind turbines that were properly serviced and not just left to rust in the ocean. But the ideals I'm talking about just don't seem to look like they're going to be around anytime soon.
What are you waiting for?
I don't know, something amazing, I guess.
Especially since a certain nap-loving president agreed in 2021 to spend $7.5 billion to build tens of thousands of electric vehicle chargers across the US, although the program that my narcoleptic friend has set up has only installed 7 of the promised 500,000 stations up to March 2024. It's alright though, Joe, you've only got 499,993 more to go. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to get a few more rolled out before the other clown takes over in November. Anyway, the absolute comical theatre that is American politics aside, this all the more solidifies my disbelief in electric cars. But hey, maybe we'll see what Congress does in the next 5.5 years, since the program does promise 500,000 stations by 2030, but personally, I'm not hoping for too much. What I am actually hoping for, in fact, is the future of another type of EV that I'm interested to research since my discovery of the Toyota Mirai while writing this script. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, and if you liked this ramble about EVs, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to see what I have to say about hydrogen cars when I finally do the research.